And now I wanted to talk about government. Let's break it down. I want to go back in time. Let's go back. Let's go back to the basics here and understand really what is a government. Let's look at it in a small scale. When you look at human life as we've evolved over the years and centuries, is go back and look at it. Look truly at what government is. It's a group of individuals that try to hold power and control over a larger group of people. That's really what it is. Well, another person, just like you, another person's ideas or what they feel is acceptable in life. To them, a small collective group of what they think, they're telling everyone else that you're going to abide by these rules. And that to hold that with power and control over you. That's really what it is when you look at it. And I know people are going to be like, well, we need someone to protect us. And what would our society be like with no one out there and protecting us? Ask yourself this question, honestly. This fad to make you feel like you need the government, to make you feel like you have to have these people protecting and watching over you. Okay, but when you look back in history, most crimes and murders and homicides and things like that happening to people compared to the population rate. So you have the actual crime, but then compared to the population size, you'll see that it has gone up in some areas. Even now, a murder rate's super high, and the amount of rate and crime is, if you look up the amount of homicides and rate and crime today compared to the population rate to the older days, it's not that far off. It's really not helping that much, to be honest with you. That's the main reason why they feel, you have to have this power and control over you, because who's going to protect you? Who's going to protect the country? When really, just like everything else, when you look back in society, when there was mass murders and people who were killing people, who was it? It wasn't just the general public. It was always a government. It was always a higher up power government killing innocent people. It was always the government that was the ones killing people. They were the ones causing mass murders and homicides and coming down on the people. So you see, that doesn't make any sense. So to break down the government as basics, let's go back hundreds, centuries ago, before you have a really organized government structure system. But let's say there's a small community of people living off the land. Okay? Let's say there's 200 people. And then let's say 20 miles away from them, there's another community with 250 people. Okay, and then one 5 miles away, and another 20 miles away, and they all have roughly 200 people in their communities. Okay, and they all function separately. And there's no cars or vehicles around at this time, so those distances would be pretty far. You could imagine those being other countries. Okay, separate civilizations or communities of people that live together. And let's say you break down this community of 200 people that they didn't have any power or control over what they can or can't do. There would just be a natural collective group effort. And you wouldn't see as much of people attacking or doing harm like that because you had to work together. When you take that small group that was already functioning well, let's say the 200 people, and they all would just work together. You have the people who would hunt and gather food, or the people who would make clothing, okay, or help build houses, or someone who was really good at making weapons or tools. Or you'd have someone who was good at taking care of the animals and livestock. Okay, is that they all functioned, they were functioning normally, and they were functioning well. And then let's create a government. Let's create, at a smaller scale, let's take what's happening today, and so you can see it at a smaller scale of what government really is. So let's say you have these 200 people of this community that lives together, that's functioning fine. Okay, that's functioning fine. And then let's say you have a small group of people within this community that starts saying, hey, you know what? I'm the best hunter. I gather everyone's food, What would they eat if it wasn't for me? Okay, and then you have let's say you have like the biggest and the strongest and the best fighters, and they just go, you know what? I'm protecting all these people. I have the power. So you take these certain type of people who hold a power or control over the other people, a necessity that they need to function, and then they have the power and control and are going to start determining what people can or can't do. What happens is, so let's say each one of those people get together. Let's say out of those 200 people, you have 15 people that get together. The strongest and biggest, who are the warriors or fighters of that community that protect the people. Then you have the person who hunts and gathers the food. He gets together with them. And then you have the person who says, hey, you know what? I make all the clothes. No one would have anything with me. that person will get together with them. So then what you have is you have this small group of people that have the necessities that that community needs, get together and then say, hey, you know what? Well, let's take power and control. Now you've created a power and control system of a small group of people over a large group of people because they hold a power and control over them. And that's allowing them to then say what they can or can't do. And now let's say these people who get together say, hey, you know what? I should be getting more clothes than everyone else. So now they have someone else start making that person more clothes because they're forced to. Okay, because they say that's the law now. That's basically what you're seeing. A government system that's built off of power and control that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a system that's based on power and control over you, over the people. A small group of people telling you what they think that you should or should not do. No one has the right to tell anyone what they can or can't do. There's a difference between having the power and control to say we're going to try to enforce that or having the right. A government can try to enforce that through power and control, but it doesn't mean they have the right to. There's only one person who has a right over anyone individually, so that would be God. There's no one that can tell anyone what they can or can't do. But as a mass population, people allow that to happen, and everyone's allowing that to happen by going along with it. So I wanted to finish off another part of this video, and I did it a different day, so that's why you see this. But starting where I left off, if these select people in these communities all got together, now that they can hold that above the people and make it a power and control system, as a small group can then now have power and control over all of them. Because what they hold is a necessity that the other people now need. So now they're forced to abide by what they're saying because they have to have their help. Imagine those other communities like I was talking about that are 20 miles away or 5 miles away or 8 miles away, these separate civilizations of people living together, communities of people living together, is that you could imagine those as different countries. Okay, so when you want to see it on like a global scale how government's working, imagine it like that. Again, we're bringing it down to a smaller scale. So at a time when there is no cars, so 20 miles away would be a long distance, and they're functioning separately. Now you can start to see maybe how you get trade agreements or things like that. Because imagine now, take this scenario, imagine the select group of people that I now talked about, okay, that now hold the power and control over the community that was functioning fine before. And then they got together and decided, since they were a necessity, and then so when you take these other select group of people who have a necessity that the people need, and then you bring them all together and then you hold that power and control, you see how that government functions in that small scale. Now that community that was functioning fine is all of a sudden not functioning fine, okay? You see the dismantling of that society start to happen because it was already functioning fine before. And then you see that switch. The number one key was working together, was helping each other out. And then to do what was right and just was the number one priority. And then it switched. And then it became power and control, then justice, and then doing what's right and what's right for everyone else. You've changed the functionality of how that community functioned, and it functioned well before. But now you have the dismantling of this society, and that now people are suffering. The only ones who are really benefiting is this small select group of people that have taken control over this community. That they're sitting back, in their little huts, okay? And they got a feast at their table, and they got the best clothes, and they got the best tools, and they're sitting back relaxing with fans. And the ladies are dropping them grapes, just sitting back, relaxing, doing nothing. And they're making the other people work, and they're the ones benefiting the most. That's what it's like. That's what's happening. That's what's happened to that community that once functioned well. So now you take that community, and then you start looking at these other societies, like I said, that would be 20 miles away or 5 miles away. And you can look at those, imagine those as other countries. So now that community that once functioned together very well, now you have a power and control system where the number one priority isn't to do the right thing, where the number one priority is to do the best for everyone. You switch the priorities. And I'm not saying that you abolish everything. What I'm saying is you change the way the system works. That you change it from the number one thing, from being power and control, to the number one thing, to doing what's right, which is helping the people, is helping the masses. Make that the number one thing. Make the number one thing justice. Make the number one thing helping everyone as much as you can. Yes, obviously there's power and control, but you don't make it number one. And you don't have this small select group of people that are doing nothing and they're the only ones benefiting from it. That's what you're getting. You can see how on a global scale how governments work. Imagine those other communities, like I was saying, as different countries. So now you take this small select group of people, like I said, from this community. Now you have these people get together, and let's say they go to one of these other communities. Say they get on their horse and they ride 20 miles away to this other society. Let's say that community of people over there that's functioning has a certain type of food that they can grow that this other community can't grow or doesn't know how to grow it. And say it's a really plentiful food, it's filling, it helps their community thrive. Okay, now they get on horseback, they go over to that other community and they say, hey, we want some of this food that you're growing here, or teach us how to do it, or we'll barter or trade for it. You can see how these things start taking place, a government structure system. So then let's say they start trading, right? And let's say that community, they don't have any animals, they don't have any horses, or they don't have any animals to travel on horseback or anything like that. And then this community does. So they say, you know what, let's make a trade agreement. You provide us with your food, okay, and we'll provide you the animals for transportation. Okay, and then now you have like a trade agreement, so they're working with each other on that. Okay, and then let's say the other community, okay, that's 5 miles away, let's say they have the best building materials to build their homes or what they live in or something like that, okay? They provide much more shelter in their living conditions, okay, than the other ones. And then they create a trade with them. Then they start all bartering. You see trade agreements, and one country wants something that someone else has, okay, and then they create a trade agreement. But now what happens is that when you start seeing corruption, okay, is that let's say the community I'm talking about that had the warriors, the fighters, and all that who were trading now with this other community for their food. And then you have, let's say, this other community that they're now trading with. And maybe they're trading now with another community. Maybe they're all now trading for specific things, okay? And they're working together. Maybe there's two of them that tend to be very tight and they're really working together. And in one community, they're not really doing anything with. Well, what happens when you see power and corruption, just like in our government today, is that when someone has something, whether it's money or power, okay, which would be like military or weaponry or something like that, is that when you hold that above someone, and now instead of trading and having this open trade agreement, you now force someone to say, hey, you know what, instead of us giving you our livestock for transportation to you, we're not going to give that to you, but you still better keep giving us your food. And then let's say that their community doesn't have any people who know how to make weapons or tools, or they're not very good fighters. Okay, and now this community has horses, and they have fighters, and they have weapons, okay? And then now they say, if you don't give us your food, we're going to attack you and your community. So then now this community is now suffering because now they're forced to now provide them with food. So not only are they working harder, they're losing food, and now they're doing it for nothing. They're not getting any help back. And the only one benefiting, again, is this small select group of people. That would be like a government benefiting from another government. And now they're not only benefiting from their own society, but now from another society taking from them, while everyone else is still suffering in their own community, and then they're just gathering more and more power and corruption. That's how it works. That's how it works on a smaller scale. At the most basic level, that's basically what it is and how you see it functioning across the world. That's how you see these countries that are super poor and they don't have any money and they get no help. It's not because their government doesn't know how to function well at all. There's so many other countries, okay, that can help them. They could provide them with money or some sort of structure to give these people food or something like that, but they don't do it because, you know what, they've been cut off. It's done on purpose. So another powerful government can cut off a country from a trade, right? Something that they needed or help with, that they cut them off because they didn't get what they wanted, or they're mad at them, or they didn't get enough, so then they just cut them off from trade. Okay, or they do something else to provide something that they once had access to, no access to, and then that society or community suffers. And that's what's happening. And that when you see it on news, people just look at that and think that, you know, that their country doesn't know how to function, and they're poor, and that's just the way it is, and they get no help, and they don't know what they're doing. What's happening is that they've been cut off by a powerful country because they could get help, and they're not getting help for a specific reason. Okay, it's not just by coincidence. And so what's happening is that for whatever reason, those countries are being cut off from other powerful government structures. That's what's actually happening. It's a hidden warfare that you don't see. When you see the wars on TV with bombs and fighting, okay, there's another war, the economical war, okay? the government war that shuts down governments, that makes communities of people poor and broke with no water and no food, and they do it on purpose because for whatever reason they're not compliant to what they want, or they're not getting something, so then they're therefore cut off and they make them suffer for it. That's what's actually happening. So when you sit there and you think that some countries that powerful with all this money and stuff are so great, okay, start looking around at the other countries and ask why are things the way that they are, and that's the reason why. Okay, it's the hidden warfare, and that what you think is all about love and helping people and things like that, and sometimes it is for a specific reason, but a lot of times it's not. And the fact is that if everyone changed their number one priority to actually helping, doing what's right and what's just, and there's a difference. First, work on your own government first, okay? Because if you can't get that straight, you shouldn't be helping other people, okay? But that's the way that it should change, okay? Is that you change the priority. And then see, everything's switched the wrong way. Like, for instance, here is that you see the power and control. Okay, our system is based off a government that's on power and control by a small select group of people that tell you what you can or can't do. And see, they've shifted the way that it should be completely different. Okay, they've put the monitoring on the people, on the larger masses. They said, you need more control, you need more monitoring, the people, the public, when it should be completely different. It should be no, the people in select positions, the higher up, who are in control of the power and control, they should be monitored. The people who are providing for the law are the ones that should be being monitored more. They should be highly monitored. It should be opposite. Why are they monitoring the people? Okay, you're looking at it backwards there. Okay, remember, the people are the ones that are the country, and everyone forgets that. It's the masses, not the small select group of people. And you let them do that because you fell into that belief that you need them and they're there for you. But the fact is that if that's true, then why is the monitoring coming on you? Why is there more control, more monitorization, saying we need to control the people? It's completely backwards. They've switched what it should be. We need to start changing that to saying, no, the people holding the law should be the ones being monitored.